Hi, I'm Milton.
And I'm Bert.
And welcome to Wild Africa Experience. So today we're going to talk about a giraffe, the world's tallest animal. It is very huge, very tall. It can reach all the way up to about 6 meters, And
Wow.
it is done so well. It's very flexible with such a height. Amazing animal. Any experiences with giraffe, Albert?
Well, I remember when I was very young, 19, my first guiding years. You remember the place I used to work used to have a giraffe that they picked up and the mother was hit by a car. Remember that? It kicked
Yeah, I
me?
remember.
Yeah, they've got quite a powerful kick, Yeah, one that can actually take down a predator, a lion, for example. You know, they can kick a lion to death. This is how strong a giraffe is. Something quite interesting,
Absolutely. Yeah, so basically, giraffe, they live in very organized groups, which you all call loose grouping. In previous experiences, we talked about elephants where they're led by one older female matriarch, but in giraffe, it's what we call loose grouping, and there'll be quite a number of males and females in the group together, the youngsters. And we also have another family member of a giraffe in the same group, which is known as an okapi. That is well known. You get it in DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. And yeah, but it's a little bit, it's not very tall as a giraffe. Yeah.
I think you get about, 7 species of giraffes?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've managed to encounter quite a few. The savanna giraffe that we have here in Zimbabwe. I've seen the Maasai. I've seen the Thornycroft in Zambia. It's endemic to Zambia.
Mm-hmm.
Which other one?
There's also a subspecies, Maasai giraffe.
The Maasai, I've seen,
reticulated.
Yeah. Reticulated,
And,
I haven't seen.
Yeah, we've also seen these days in closer to Victoria Falls area. There is also what is known as the Angolan giraffe. It's got some amazing blotches, the patterns. They're very serrated, which is quite amazing. And yeah, so they're quite conspicuous, and it's amazing the way they feed, their feeding behaviors. They take closer to, we can say closer to 34 kilograms of food a day, which is, they spend quite a lot of time just feeding on different trees and sometimes smaller bushes and everything.
That's, we're looking at what, about 18 hours of eating?
Of eating, yeah.
Because they're only going for the small foliage. It looks like they love the acacia so much. So they've got quite a long tongue.
That's
and
right.
they will wrap it around, and the very dexterous mouth as well that can go around the thorns and just pluck out the leaves in particular. That's a lot of work.
Amazing, yeah. Such a tongue, certain type of mouth, which they call it horny papillae. It's a leather material kind of, which they won't get stung when they're taking the leaf out of a thorn, which is a great. But however, since they're moving in such a group, they're always trying to avoid some kind of competition when they're feeding. You'd find out because of the longer neck, males, they have a tendency of feeding with vertically stretched, reaching what we call axis right on top there, and female a little bit horizontal right at the bottom. So as they move around, they'll be feeding on a tree, moving around, and eventually a tree will form a shape of an hourglass, which is quite amazing.
Something quite impressive. And one thing I've also noticed is how they always move against the wind. Have you noticed that? Also, we talked about it on one of our episodes whereby trees communicate chemically. So giraffes have figured out that as long as they move against the wind, they can feed more.
Absolutely.
Which is something that you always find pretty interesting. And I've never heard giraffes vocalizing, have you?
Yeah, they do have some sort of kind of communication, quite a number of postures which they do, but it's not that they are mute. They do give some kind of sounds, but it's not very common. Yeah.
That's quite
Talking about walking, basically the name giraffe derived from the term zirafka. That means it's an Arabic word. That means something which walks swiftly. They've got some amazing kind of a gait. The way they walk, legs of the same side moving simultaneously. We call it ambidextral gait. Someone who uses both left and right hand. That's ambidextrous. So ambidextral gait, such a walk. It's very amazing when it comes to balancing and movement. moving. So they have a tendency of moving from one place to another, you know, in search of better taste. It's just, we've been saying,
That's quite interesting.
like in need of good taste of food.
Yeah, I've always thought that there's a special scientific reason why they walk like that, but then someone said to me, maybe it's because they've got long legs. So it's just to avoid the legs knocking each other.
Yeah, that's right, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, but speaking of giraffes, something quite interesting that you always find is a lot of people don't even know that they are related to your cows. They are ruminants. So they've got 4 stomach chambers, they chew the cud, and what makes it different, obviously, is adaptation. They've got a longer neck so that they can access food where other animals don't. But being like that, the main difference now, you find that they are water independent. So whatever they eat, their dung doesn't come out like buffalo, for example, or you would think of a cow dung, you know. They come out as pellets because as it goes through the system, water is absorbed back into their bodies for further usage, and then by the time it comes out, the pellets are almost as dry. And when you look on the pellets, you can actually tell the difference between a male and a female, because a male doesn't care. He doesn't stop when he's doing his business. So you find that the pellets will start from here, and then they'll end up wherever they end where he's walking, whereby the female stops and then make sure that he makes her nice pile, and then she moves away. Something that I've always find quite interesting, unless obviously you chase it away.
Lovely. You was talking about rumination. It's something which is very important when it comes to the digestive system of a giraffe. So what they do is they will sit with what we call brisket form of sitting, right? And the neck is always up. So they will never close their eyes like for more than 20 minutes. It's all like kind of 5 minutes interval. And when they are doing the rumination, it's like an animal which is on a power nap, you know. So it's a very relaxed state where they'll be regurgitating the food, chewing the cud, and at the same time it's relaxed. The other mind is just thinking who is around me, and they just close the eyes just for a short period of time. So it's kind of amazing. They will you rarely see it. They can never lie down completely with the neck on the ground just because of the flowing up and down of the blood with such a long neck, and that makes them as well. Whenever they are drinking water, they have to go and spread the front legs, and then they bend the neck, and there's what we call mirable red system, which controls the going up and down of the blood from. And they have a tendency, I believe as well, they've got the strongest heart compared to a lot of mammals, since blood is pumping from the heart to the head such a long way. And so that is the time as well where they can be very vulnerable to predators. Have you encountered some giraffe being preyed upon by other predators?
Yeah, 2008, in the Eastern Cape. Just driving through the gate, and the giraffe was busy giving birth, and then some lions just popped out into the picture, and then they took down the mother. You know, it's something quite sad, but you would understand the lion's point of view as well. They need to eat, so being opportunists, they took it down, unfortunately. And quite impressive. The mother fought.
Really?
She did put a big fight.
So I would say basically the main predators would be hyenas and lions. But however, you know, they can deliver a nasty kick. One kick of a giraffe, it can dislocate a lion. You know, if in most of the time I've seen in one of the park I worked in Zimbabwe, a young lion was trying to go and hunt, learning how to hunt, and then it was kicked and it died on the spot. You know, so it's learning by experience, which is not a great thing to try on a giraffe because of very powerful kick they deliver. It's actually both legs they can deliver a nasty kick. Yeah,
that's quite interesting. Also, they're famous for head-butting as well. You know, when they put their head down and they're ready to strike. Speaking of the neck, you know, a lot of people would wonder, like, why is the giraffe neck different from the rest of the mammals? So the amount of bones on the giraffe neck is exactly the same as the amount of bones on a mouse's neck. It is something you need to ponder on. Nature is quite interesting.
It's very, very interesting. If you look at, you know, he was talking about necking, you know, the fight of giraffe. We also call it justing. And that distinguishes now the difference between a male and a female. they form what you call ossicles. You know, it's they at first when they're born with a little leathery horn, which a horn development will eventually kick on immediately after they're born. And as it becomes a bone, and then from a young age, young male, they start fighting, jousting, we call necking, and they'll eventually clear up, open the top part of the ossicles, and it becomes open. So the major difference from a distance, you'd see that males, they are bold on top, very robust, and females, the horns are very tiny, curved inwards, and cover the hair with the hair tufts, since they don't do little fighting. And I always want to dismiss this thing. People, they think that males, they're dark, and females, they are light. You know, what do you think? I think
coloration is a whole different story. It's like how we get different types of hair on a person. Some people are blondes, some are brunettes. I've got brown hair, you've got black hair. So,
great, yeah.
But to an extent, though, you find, I don't know if you saw the recent article where they found a leucistic giraffe.
Indeed,
giraffe that's white.
Yeah, so
pretty interesting.
Great. So colors, they're individually geographically vary, eh? So depending on the area they are and the gene. So you're right. It's quite amazing to get such a coloration.
Yeah, but one guide was telling me that he has noticed in the game reserve that he's worked for a long time that the females prefer mating with bulls that are darker, which is something that I found quite interesting. They wouldn't go for the lighter colored ones, but obviously the fights determine everything.
All right. Anyway, stay tuned. We're gonna take a short break.
We're still talking about giraffe, and we just tend to realize they're also quite a prey for a lot of predators, right? Well, not a lot, but baby giraffes fall prey to
lions,
leopards and lions,
hyenas,
and then specialized lions like in Etosha. I've noticed the one day we counted 4 giraffe kills in a day in Etosha. 36 lions later.
36 lions.
Yeah, but there was in different spots.
Yep.
So, but you were talking earlier, just during the break, how they've got very heightened senses. You want to elaborate?
Yeah, that's right. So basically, what happened is because they're very tall. Always you see them very in a distance, quite conspicuous, and other animals, they have a tendency of using giraffes for their advantage when it comes to alertness in the bush. So they kind of coexist one another. Animals like impalas, they always look around, stay there close by giraffes, because the giraffe, it can see, it's got advantage of the height. It can see from a long distance, and they also, since they are a little bit high, very tall, they can also hear very well. Eyesight also very good. Having them around, smaller animals, they get a very great advantage. So they have to have their own anti-predator tactic ready for defending themselves with the predators when they come in. And then these animals are very inquisitive. Usually you see giraffes, if they pick up that there is a lion, I've seen in one of the parks I worked, instead of running, they will walk straight into the predator. And that is why as well, their way of defending themselves it's a little bit different to what a buffalo do when it comes to defending the youngster. So a giraffe, it becomes inquisitive, that it wants to see the predator, where it is, what is its intention. But by that time, when it does so, the calf, the baby, they will follow behind, and up to a distance where it's not going to be very good. And if a lion start up the chase, it's an individual defense mechanism where they have to kick as they go. So the kick of a youngster, it won't penetrate to a lion, and eventually they get knocked off. So that for them being inquisitive, it can be so bad for the youngsters. But other animals, they use it as a very great advantage. And I've seen as well, by grabbing the branch, sometimes they might not be able to eat at a steady position. They will grab the branch and then it drops on the ground, and impalas, they can also follow and eat in little creatures. It's quite amazing.
Quite interesting, eh? And there's something that I've seen. The one day I was with this guest of mine from Finland, and the lady came to me afterwards and said, "Oh, you know what? I was actually crying when I saw those giraffes running. You know how they run? It looks like they're doing it in slow motion. Eh?
All right.
That gait in slow motion." And she was like, it was all I wanted to see, a giraffe running, you know. It's something that is worth viewing, actually, a giraffe running. I'm not saying you should chase it when you go into the bush, because the idea is actually not to disturb them.
So that's where the name camelopard in Afrikaans came from. You know, it walks like a camel, and a perd is a horse, gallops like a horse. So it's a combination of the two when it runs. Yeah, it's quite amazing, quite swiftly seeing it. But whenever you see that, it definitely means that there is something around. It's good. And many a times when I'm doing a game drive, or even when I'm doing a walking safari in particular, I tend to observe those signs. Those are the telltales which you need to observe, you need to look at, and you'll see that, okay, this giraffe is just staring at one side. What is happening? And then I'll look at impalas. Are they also seeing the same thing? And from there, I start to be vigilant. I start to warn my guests that, okay, remain in the single file, check around, and then, so they're very good indicators checking around because of the height and elevated air.
That's quite interesting, eh? But you know, I know on game drives they're fairly easy to approach if they're used to the game drive vehicles. But on a walking experience, have you noticed how can you get fairly close to them without really disturbing them or making them a bit inquisitive? Or they can see you from quite a distance?
They can see you from quite a distance, and then they can allow you actually to approach quite closer. I would say to probably around 15 meters or so. And then if you start seeing them running, that means they've gone too close. But and sometimes I do it deliberately that I appear and then hide a bit, and then they become very inquisitive. They want to come and see, and then I appear myself, I reappear, and then they'll come, and then we'll remain on the area until get some great sighting. So it's quite a very good animal to see on foot.
Wow, that's quite interesting. Eh? I mean, I've been very fortunate in my career to actually watch a giraffe giving birth. Something that's quite interesting. You know, it takes a giraffe a long time. Its gestation period, the time it takes before it gives birth, 14 months. And when the time comes, it actually gives birth standing up. So you're talking of a baby falling from about a 1.5 meter height. You know, speak of someone inventing bungee jump.
That's right. So it's weird. Bungee jump on the first day of the world. That's something else.
That's quite interesting, eh?
Yeah. So so basically, giraffes you can get them throughout Zimbabwe.
Quite a few pockets that you probably won't be able to find them.
Yeah, like Manapus. Manapus, you don't get giraffes because of Zambezi Valley itself. It's very mountainous and surrounded by big mountains. The valley, and as well the construction of Lake Kariba. Because these animals, they can traverse from different areas, walking from long distances, searching for food, improving the gene pool, you know, doing all sorts. So the other side is Lake Kariba, and these valleys, it cannot go up and down of the valleys. So it kind of blocked. So there won't be, you won't get them in Manapus National Park. And and it's something as well where generally if an animal hasn't appeared in an area before, it's kind of not very good idea to reintroduce it in the area.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah, but Wange you can find them?
Wange you can find them, yeah. Victoria Falls.
Matopo you can get them as well.
Yeah. In all these little national parks, from even Chivero Recreational Park. And private game reserves as well in Zimbabwe. It's actually, you know, in a game reserve, we would say high profile, you know, talk of leopards, lions and elephants. And I worked at a game reserve where we did not have the big five. And our high profile game was a giraffe. You know, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
So if you would look for, you know, impalas, you look for a lot of things. And when you see a giraffe, that's your high profile.
You've made
You've made the day.
You've made the
you know,
game.
So giraffe is also part of high profile game, you know. It's not only lions or leopards. Giraffe is a high profile.
That's quite interesting, yeah. And there's also another concept that we were discussing the other day about how people love keeping giraffes in their big 5-hectare land, and they put a few giraffes, and then they don't realize that there's maybe a lot of mopani and giraffes because they're running. It was actually found at a farm where giraffes had died but with food in their stomachs, and no one could understand it at the beginning. And then they realized that there wasn't enough food for them, so they kept on eating the tanned mopani leaves, and then the food just
It affected the yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so it's same cause it happened again. I was reading another article. 1982, there was drought in South Africa, in particular Kruger National Park, and so many kudus and giraffe were dying just of concentrating on feeding on one particular bush, which is an evergreen tree, and because they contain high levels or high content of tannin, which it will end up affecting them having what you call liver failure, you know. So it's very sad, but it's something which it comes back again that it's not very easy to have a national park or a private game reserve. You need to make sure that the ecological carrying capacity and the population dynamics, it's balancing. That's why we have guys like ecologists. They need to calculate per square meter or per square kilometer how many animals are we more likely to do, and that's the reason why as well sometimes we have to do what you call game counting. It helps us to know how many animals we're going to introduce, and we're also able to transfer or translocate animals to different parks so that you can improve the gene pool, which is quite a great thing. Right.
And also, I had an old colleague who actually found a giraffe with a dead monkey in its mouth. Something that is quite interesting. We actually should ask him for that picture because it's actually quite an interesting one. But I had to give my own opinion about it, and then it turned out it could have been the case because it was during the wet season. The giraffe couldn't find a lot of bones around, you know, a process that we would call osteophagy, whereby giraffes would start consuming bone. So it had the monkey in its mouth and it was shaking it around and it was trying to get to the bone so that it can start gnawing on it.
That's right.
Which is something that I found pretty interesting. So it's something that you also, one of the days you find a giraffe just standing there with a big bone in its mouth, just going and you're wondering what is happening here. They do tend to eat giraffe every now and then.
Yes. So talking of that, I've always seen, you know, a lot of people, they always have a tendency of saying, no, giraffe, you're going to get them in a savanna or in a thick area. There is a section in parks where nice and open flay, where you see them walking with the head held a little bit down, just trying to pick up those bones because it's very good for their calcium. Very good calcium supplement.
Wow.
Yeah. So giraffes, very fascinating animal, and they are all over Africa with different types of giraffes around, and including the Okapi in DRC. And yeah, so Zimbabwe, when it comes to population of giraffes, we are doing so well, and they're breeding very well.
That's quite interesting.
Great.
Eh? All right. Until the next episode of Wild Africa Experience. See you next time.
Until next time. Cheers.